we have the incredible, the amazing Jess and Haley here with me, two just outstanding women who I have personally adored watching grow in your businesses online. I think you two are just some of the best in the game and just genuinely like the nicest people. So that seems to be like a common thread with Kajabi customers. I just feel like you guys are all just like the best people on the planet. So if you're not a Kajabi customer yet, join the club. So excited. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining. I've known both of you for a while now and have had the pleasure of speaking with both of you at separate occasions. So very excited to have this discussion all around unlocking Instagram growth, both organic and paid. And so with that, I think we'll just jump right into kind of the first bucket, which we've described as growth strategies. So Jess, I know that you are growing rapidly on many social platforms. So what is your top recommendation for someone who's building an organic Instagram following? We hear a lot from people who like stumble into a following or like kind of like naturally get it, or people who feel like they never naturally get it. But do you have any tactical advice for any steps on how newer creators can actually build their following? And also tell us a little bit about who you are, because I realized I didn't have to let you guys introduce yourself. So Jess, who you are, and then go into organic Instagram following.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me here. I'm super excited. I was just looking at how many people are watching, which is crazy. So that's really cool. So I am Jessica Hawks. I am an online business coach. I actually started out in 2020 during the pandemic. I started out as a virtual assistant for wedding creatives and kind of very quickly started making TikTok videos. And I just wanted to spread awareness about the fact that you can build a business online. So that transitioned into me becoming a mentor. And I now have multiple different courses, a lot of different marketing classes on things like Pinterest, blogging, and I also have a podcast, The Digital State of Mind. So yeah, I'm super excited to be here. And I think it's funny that you say that about a lot of people stumbling into a following. It's interesting because I would say that it's very difficult to stumble into a following anymore. This is something that we kind of saw back in the earlier days of Instagram and especially YouTube. You could kind of grow very quickly, and that's kind of how it goes with any new platform. It's easier, obviously, to grow if you kind of get in early, but it started to become very difficult to do that, especially if you're a business owner. We see this happening more with influencers and people who are more so just kind of internet personalities. You can still see that really rapid growth, but it's different unless you kind of build a following on something like TikTok and then that audience migrates over to something like your Instagram. It's difficult to just grow a large audience on Instagram alone or on YouTube alone. So I would say that in this situation, one of the most important steps here is to think about where your audience is going to be. Whenever I initially started coaching and kind of wanted to transition into mentorship, it's surprising to say now, but there really weren't that many coaches and business owners on TikTok yet. But I knew that the audience I was trying to reach, which is primarily younger people who are kind of at a crossroads of, should I go to college or should I start a business? I knew that they would be on a platform like TikTok. And because I went there instead of following, what other business coaches were telling me to do, how to launch, a course initially, because I instead went to TikTok, that's something that allowed me to grow at a rate that I never would have been able to grow if I was just using something like Instagram. So I think you really have to start doing some market research and look, okay, if I'm selling this product or if I'm selling this course, where do those people that are my ideal client, where are they going to be hanging out, instead of just following something because you've seen other people do it? I think it's also really important in this situation to put a lot of focus in not only outreach content, but also retention content. I think that some people kind of make the mistake of only doing trending videos or only creating trendy content on Instagram. But you have to really kind of hit both sides. So you want to be creating outreach content where you're following trends, where it's shorter form content, things that really capture your audience's attention and pull them in. And then also creating the retention content, which is likely not going to perform as well as your outreach content, but don't let that scare you. Creating the retention content that's actually the more educational, long form content, because that's at the end of the day, what's going to make your audience trust you. And that's what the people who are going to buy from you need in the long run.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I've never heard someone describe it in such clear way of like the retention versus outreach. And I love the reminder of like the trending content and the content that's going to get you more eyeballs and more awareness is not necessarily the content that's going to hook your audience and keep them around, which is really, really smart to divide it into those two buckets. And I like that you mentioned that it might not be as successful in terms of numbers, but you can probably define success a different way with the retention content than you do of the outreach content. So I really like that framework. I think it's simple and you can imagine a creator going every other day for like whichever one. It actually helps you develop your content in a more thoughtful way.
Yeah, there's so many different kind of micro buckets beneath both of those like more umbrella terms. But if you're just starting out and trying to really get your marketing down, that's a great way to start. And then you can kind of see how your audience reacts and then move in different ways beneath each category as time goes. But it's a learning process for sure.
Totally. And probably feeling what resonates best with your audience and listening to the analytics. And you might do one retention series that like doesn't really perform that well for your metrics for success for that type of content. And then you transition to something different and maybe that takes off. Haley, I would love to pass it to you to introduce who you are and what an amazing business that you built on Kajabi. But I'd also love for you to answer the question around like, at what point should a creator start to think about introducing paid into their social strategy as opposed to just organic? Oh, I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. I was muted. I was afraid my dogs were going to bark. I feel like everyone kind of understands that if you have dogs. Allie and I actually met when I still worked a 9-to-5 job. And I will say I have used Kajabi since I quit my job. And we have turned it into a multi-million-dollar business with Kajabi. And let me tell you, it is really the only software you need. It's crazy. So I'm so excited to be here. Anything Kajabi does, I'm just so pumped. Let's see. So I am Haley. I actually help scale online courses and memberships with an evergreen sales funnel, which basically just means it's automated. And we do that with automation and sales psychology. So that's what I do. And when it comes to Instagram, I'm a very big number person. So I'm like, okay, if we can track success, right? And I think the three numbers I always look at is reach, engagement, and conversion. And when it comes to reach, I think I don't know how, Jess, you do it with all the content. I am such a different personality where I would get so burnt out so fast. And I think there's some people that are so freaking talented, like you, Jess. I was looking at your profile. I was like, dang, you're so good. I cannot be consistent for the life of me. But my Instagram continually increases. And so the way I do that is, I know someone was asking about funnels earlier, and that's how I do it. So in Kajabi, there's this things called pipelines, right? And you can use a pipeline. So what I do in the middle of it. So most of you will have something to sell your course or membership. That might be a webinar. It might be a challenge. That might be a video series. It might be a summit, an online conference, whatever that is, right? Well, you'll have a registration page. You'll be collecting that information with Kajabi. Well, I always say the next page can be what's called an audience builder. So an audience builder is something that kind of feeds audience growth on a platform. And that way, if you're getting all these leads in, you might as well use those leads, not just to make sales, but also to grow your audience. Because if they're not immediately sold in the pipeline you built with Kajabi, well, cool. You have them in your audience and can use the content. Jess has some great strategies here. Use that content to go actually, get them to become a student. When it does come to content, I'm very big about two things. So like the number one thing is evergreening your profile, because Instagram growth is great, but sales growth from Instagram is better, in my opinion. So the way I do this is like evergreening my profile. You can leverage highlights. So if you're a course or membership, there can be a highlight about case studies that can be broken down. Thorough education on Instagram. I think it used to be kind of surface level and consistency was the game. It has to be a certain aesthetic. And now it's more about thorough education that's entertaining, that someone can share. So if we think in terms of that, you have special sauce. You know what you know, and you share it with your course. So what we want to do is we want to package up that special sauce, but we want to make it educational in like a bit by bit way that someone would want to share. That's the kind of content that I have seen convert really well to grow your following, but grow your following in a way that's directly leading to like, oh, this person knows their stuff. It's not just someone putting a trending audio, like Jess was saying, all the trendy stuff. That's great. Like hop on the trending audio train because that can increase your reach. But I always focus on things that I can more so control. And you can control reach when you're answering questions that they're actually asking. When you're getting a DM and you're getting a question, I would immediately go make a reel answering that in a fun way. Like those are the kind of things that I think are going to get shared, and sharing increases reach, which increases your following.
Yeah, I love that so much. I want to touch on one thing that you said, which is leveraging the content that you already have. So I think this is one, the DM tip is like so great. And like platforms like TikTok and even Instagram now are making that even easier, right? When you can like reply to a comment, and it just makes it so much easier as a creator to do that. But also what you said, Haley, about if you're building a course or you're building a membership site and you have content, why not go back and scrub through those videos and pull out 10, 15 second little tiny bite-sized things that are going to deliver value and hook your audience and retain your audience that, again, might not give you the awareness boost, but do a trending reel and then also post that. And now you have like the recipe for getting people not only aware of you, but also hooked with your content. And you didn't spend any extra time developing content just for Instagram. It's about making your content work for you and you not working for your content.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. And if any of you have a webinar, webinars are the best source for this, because the educational part of the webinar, you can take that and break it into 30 seconds. And because usually webinars come with visuals, and just create a visual where it's click, click, click. And then they're getting educated on that part. And it's crazy the quality of people that will start following you, and you'll start attracting people that you're actually going to want to DM back,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, imagine too, even if you're a one-on-one coach, even if you just recorded your coaching sessions and cut up the parts that you talk in it and make it your content on Instagram. I just think there's a million and one ways that you can leverage the existing things that you already do to retain the audience that you're building on social. Jess, I'd love to ask you, like Haley mentioned a little bit about the like metrics and how to make sure that you're always solving for what the data is telling you on social platforms. For you right now, as you're growing your TikTok and your Instagram, are there any metrics specifically that you think are the most valuable for your business? Like what to you is a signal that this type of content is working well on these certain platforms?
Yeah. I also wanted to say I loved what Haley said too about leveraging content you have, because I think so many times we overthink it, and we're like, well, I don't know what my audience wants to see. I don't know how I can pump out this many videos, etc. And oftentimes that content is literally right in front of your face in a DM or a question that you're getting multiple times. And we just don't think of it that way. We just overcomplicate it so much. So I loved that as well. But so in terms of kind of benchmarks and measuring your success with your content, it can be really tricky. I see this especially with, I talk a lot about TikTok, and I think that TikTok and Instagram tie really well together for marketing. So I'm going to use TikTok as an example, but oftentimes something that you'll see is you'll go to a creator's profile and they'll have really low followers, but they will have an extremely high, potentially millions of likes. And so we equate that, just a, average audience member would say, oh, wow, like they're doing pretty good because of that amount of likes. But what you'll often see with people who actually are making money and making sales from TikTok or Instagram is that oftentimes the followers are fairly high or pretty high, but the likes are fairly low. And we look at that and we kind of take that as, oh, well, why are their likes so low? But at the end of the day, your followers and the people who are kind of watching along with your journey, those are the people who are actually going to convert into sales. At the end of the day, your likes don't mean anything. They're completely irrelevant if you're not actually seeing conversion from that. So I think that when it comes to this, we can get really caught up in the likes and how well is this one piece of content doing. And you have to remember that with any platform, it's never going to be linear. Oftentimes you'll have a video that does really well, whether that's a reel or a TikTok or maybe a certain post, and then you would expect that it would just kind of keep peaking up. That's not how it happens. You can have one video that goes viral, your next 20 videos get barely any views. And so I just want to say, for anyone who's kind of experienced that and that's scarred them a little bit in terms of creating content, that is a 100% normal thing to happen. And that's how it's going to be when you're someone who is not necessarily an influencer or a personality, but rather you are a business owner trying to get sales from your content. So in terms of benchmarks, something that we really pay the closest attention to, because you have to keep in mind that obviously social media moves so fast. TikTok does, Instagram does, that you get the hang of it and then you're like, oh, perfect, it's completely changed yet again. But I think that something that's the most helpful is to look at which type of content your audience is interacting the most with. Sometimes I'll just go back through my TikTok videos, and if it has a lot of likes, that's great, but I don't really care, because I'm looking at things like saves. How many people are saving this specific video versus this video? Because likely if they've saved something, and this applies for Instagram as well, if they're saving something, it's something that they want to remember. And whenever it comes to sales, we all have heard the fact that you have to be exposed to something, 15 to 20 times before you're actually ready to invest in it. People will save your video, they'll save your Instagram post, and they'll think, oh, I'm going to come back to that another day. You as the business owner cannot rely on them remembering to do that, because our attention span is just shot from particularly TikTok. So what that tells you is, okay, this person was interested in this type of content, but there's something that's holding them back from actually moving forward with it. Maybe it's just time, but that's a really good indicator that that is the type of content that those specific people need to see more of. So I would do this constantly. I wouldn't just look at some of your content right now in August of 2022 and say, okay, this is the type of content that was saved. My marketing strategy for the next 6 months is to create more of that. You have to constantly look at it, because the way that people buy has shifted so much, and it's always going to be shifting. So you kind of have to keep doing this, I would say every month or so that you can kind of keep updated. And I would also pay attention to things like, what was I saying at the beginning of this reel or the beginning of this TikTok that performed really well? What was my hook? What captured them into this video? What aspect of it or what component of it is what caught their attention in the first place? Utilize that strategy more. I would also say that with this, you always want to make sure that you're funneling people from one platform to the other. This is another mistake that I see happening. Whenever you kind of look at people's following on TikTok, I have almost 900,000 on TikTok. I have 128,000 on Instagram. So the amount of people that actually move over from a platform like TikTok or YouTube to your Instagram is fairly low. And if you don't have a strategy to get them to do that, it's going to be even lower. So an example of this is, for me, create some type of content that's exclusive to something like Instagram. So for me, all of my free live videos, those are on my Instagram. If people want to learn how to start their business, I'm going to direct people from TikTok over to that. If you are someone who has a fashion course on Kajabi and you're posting your outfits of the day on TikTok, tell them that the details about the outfit will be on your Instagram story. You want to just find some way to kind of bottleneck them over to the platform where you're actually doing a lot of selling and where they're going to see you more. So.
Oh my gosh, so much goodness to unpack there. I don't even know where to start. My head's spinning with all the things. So saves, I completely agree. Saves is the new, I feel golden star for any social media platform. I mean, I even think obviously anecdotally, I don't really like anything on social platforms anymore. Yeah. I save it to your point, if I want to remember, I want to go back. Now, if I actually do that, that's another question, but that kind of speaks to your strategy around, I don't think I've heard people ever say it in the way of how are you getting people from one platform to another? Because just because you have a following on one doesn't mean they're seeing all of the things that you want them to see. And then Haley, I'd love to get your perspective on this, because I know you talk a lot about sales psychology and the purchase making decision and how you make that decision. And I think it's so brilliant that if they're following you on TikTok, but you're doing most of your selling on Instagram, then you're not capitalizing on that audience. You're not actually serving that audience. You're leading them to just more and more content. And so funneling them over in a really unique way is such a smart idea. And Haley, I don't know if you have anything to add on top of that sales psychology mentality.
Yeah, this is so interesting. I think what Jess uses as TikTok, I use as my funnel. So I think that's the difference, but it's so similar, It's I create an automated funnel that's feeding this thing where I'm sending to Instagram. So I'll have a highlight section that'll be very specific and it'll educate using the sales psychology. So there's so many different things with cell psychology, but there's a specific part of your brain that chemicals will get released when you educate in like a value driven way. And there's a certain way to do this. So what we do is we use this thing called the signature method, which is basically a specific way to organize the secret sauce that you have that you're selling inside of, you know, your course or membership. So we can create a visual breakdown of this in the highlight section that's teaching them a different way of doing things. And you can do that in the highlight section. Well, your funnel can send directly to that highlight, and that's where the education happens. So that's what it kind of looks like for me. Very, very, very similar.
Yeah, totally. I know we have a lot more questions that we originally came up with, but we have so many good questions in the chat that I kind of want to just like go through these because it's kind of like talking about everything that you guys just both touched on. So one of the things that somebody asked, this is probably a little bit more for Jess, but Haley, I'd love to hear your thoughts too, is can you speak to what the best outreach content is? So you were talking about outreach versus retention. What is the difference there? What type of content works best for each of those?
Yeah, so outreach content, you're typically not educating anyone outside of a very surface level. So I may be in an outreach video on TikTok or Instagram in a reel, I may be educating someone or exposing them to the idea of what a virtual assistant is or a social media manager is, but I'm not really educating them any more beyond that. We're not going deeper in our outreach content because your whole point of it is not to educate someone and tell them everything that you want them to know in this one video. The point is I want to expose myself to this person so that they come into my world and I can then hit them with retention content, my educational content. So outreach content is going to be very trendy. So usually trending audios, or if you are a big TikTok user or even with reels tend to kind of hit Instagram, the trends a little bit later, like a week and a half, typically after TikTok, because TikTok moves so quickly. But if you start paying attention to any of the trends that are happening on TikTok, you can apply those to business. It's going to take some rewiring of your brain because it's difficult to see a trend that's just very relevant to people's personal life and then think, oh, how can I apply that to business? But it can be done. You just have to practice and do it consistently. So it's going to be trending videos. It's also going to be rooted in a lot of kind of what Haley was just saying with sales psychology. Obviously, like she said, there's so much that goes into that, but you kind of have to put yourself or just observe yourself when you're scrolling through TikTok or Reels. What makes you stop? A lot of content doesn't make us stop. It's not interesting to us. But what typically dictates whether we stop or not is going to be the first 2 seconds of the video. And this is something that, you know, a lot of people who are interested in sales are aware of, but this also can be applied to your video content is oftentimes, especially if we have courses, that's typically because we've accomplished something that we then want to help other people do as well. So we kind of tend to be in this mindset of, okay, I'm going to talk about what I have accomplished. So for example, if I was making a TikTok video and I said something like, I made $9,000 a month as a virtual assistant, you have to think about the viewer is when they first see that video, they want to know, what can I get out of this video? So if I say that, someone may think, oh, that's interesting, or, you know, that's a cool thing that this person did, but what's in it for me? If you don't let them know in the first 2 seconds what's in it for them, they likely aren't going to pay attention or care. So even just kind of language shifts, like for instance, you could be making $60 an hour as a virtual assistant or $9K a month as a virtual assistant. That's immediately going to spark this, you know, chemical in their brain that is like, okay, now I'm interested because I can see what's in the long run for me out of this content. So a lot of it's going to be based around the first 3 or so seconds. Outreach content is not typically going to be longer form. So 3-minute videos, that's not usually going to be a part of outreach content. They can go viral, of course, but it's usually going to be under 30, if not 15 seconds. Following trends, just something that's going to really capture people's attention. And just don't feel like you have to teach someone everything that you have to offer them in your outreach content, because that's not the point. All of your other content is for doing that, and outreach content serves its own purpose. So
yeah, so brilliant. I think if anyone can take away even just one thing of what Jess was just saying is diversify your content on these channels and don't just do the trending things. Don't just do the outreach things. Do them both and let them serve the purpose that they're supposed to serve. Like, you're not supposed to get a sale from a trending TikTok sound. Maybe you will, but that's not the goal of that. And so you have to have both in your business. I think it's really smart to categorize them as such. Haley, you mentioned earlier, Instagram, TikTok, social media in general, you were like, it's a little bit more draining for me, which is why I focus on the funnel. I identify with that as well. We had a great question. Someone said, what are 2 or 3 things that an older age creator with a corporate exec target market can do to get started on Instagram or TikTok, or are Instagram and TikTok not the right channels? So do you want to answer this one?
Yeah. Okay. There's so many different ways you could do this, but I'll tell you exactly what I'm doing and I find works really well. So first of all, automated sales system is going to be the game changer, because then what your energy is going to be spent on is getting leads in the automated sales funnel instead of making high volume, consistent content, because I think everyone is so different, and I think it's good to be self-aware and know what's going to work for you and then what's not going to work for you, because it's all different. So having an automated sales system to build that audience for you is great. When it comes to the content itself, what I've seen work really, really well for someone that's not wanting to post consistently, but the post you are getting up there is actually going to convert, is having a core message that is going to convert into sales. It's proven based on data. So this based on view to engagement, that is the data point, and then engagement to click. Those are typically the data points that I would look at. And then from those clicks, and Kajabi will have this data for you in the pipeline, but like from those clicks, how many are actually turning into leads, and then leads to sell, right? So just go through that funnel and see what message is converting the best. Then it's all about wrapping paper. So whatever is the big topic that's happening right now. So for me, it would be, did the iOS changes mess up your Facebook ad profitability, or asking answering a big question that I get asked all the time. Why is my webinar not converting? So taking those topics that are, taking up a lot of space in their brain, and then taking that message and just wrapping it up. So you're teaching the same thing, but you're taking a different angle on the teaching. That way you're not having to create new content. You're taking the same content, putting different wrapping paper on it. It makes it a lot easier to create content, which is going to make it a lot easier for you, for someone that's not going to want to show up consistently. I create all my content in one day, a month. And I actually have someone now outline it, and they're sending it to me. I'm like, okay, cool. I create it, then we're good. We use Instagram as a testing ground to exactly what I was saying, those data points. We track those. Whichever one is the best, we just put money behind it, because we can actually project the amount of money made from it. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah. The one thing that I think is so brilliant that you do, Haley, a really good job at is understanding what your customer life cycle is, meaning what's their journey based on data. So I know a lot of entrepreneurs have a really hard time understanding, like, how does social media actually make me sales? And I think it's exactly what you just talked about, whether it's organic or paid. Like, you have to pay attention to what content is getting engagement, what content is getting clicks, what clicks are turning into leads, what leads are turning into sales. And then from there, double down on that type of content. And if you don't have that data, for one, if you have Kajabi, you do have that data. So that's great. So start with our funnel builder, which also, Haley, I don't know if you saw the update, but it's no longer called pipelines. It's called funnels, which is great.
No way. I didn't know that. Exciting.
Yeah. So we simplified our language. So now you can just call them funnels. So if you look in your funnel builder, you can see all those metrics and actually start to make sense of what content works and what content is making you money. And then I also think, like, ask your customers. If you're just starting out and you have a handful of customers who have come through the door, why not get on like a free 30-minute coaching call with them, do a little bit of teaching, and then say, hey, thank you so much for your time. I'd love to ask you, like, on my Instagram or on my TikTok, what are some of the videos that like you saw when you were first finding me? Or what were some of the videos that really made you feel like you could take the leap to purchase my product? Ask. And then when they give you that feedback, if that's the type of customer you want, go create the content that customer said that hooked them. Like, it really can just be that simple. So if you don't have the data, find the data through your customers. But if you have Kajabi, just look in your funnel pipeline builder and see what clicks are turning into leads, what leads are turning into sales. I think it's a foolproof way to make sure that you're creating content that's right. So ladies, we have so many more questions, but we are out of time. We're actually over time. So thank you both so much for your wisdom and your knowledge. If you want to stick around and jump into the chat and answer questions, that would be phenomenal. But also, I know you guys are crazy busy running these empires, these amazing businesses. So we just really appreciate you. And if you didn't get your question answered, we will do our best to compile all these questions afterwards and make sure that we're continuing to bring Haley and Jess back to answer them, because I know that we could literally go on for hours about this topic, and you two are queens. So if you have one thing to take away from this too, it's go find them both on social and follow what they do. Like, they live this stuff, they eat this stuff, they breathe this stuff. It is like, they're not just talking it, they are doing it. So go follow one of Haley's funnels, go look at one of Jess's pieces of content and really understand what's working for them, and try to model it, because I think the tactics are obviously proven to work. So again, thank you both so much. I just can't thank you enough for your time and your wisdom that you've shared.